join me on the line right now. As you can see right now, as a matter of fact, he has a game called Huddle. That is the ultimate fantasy football board game. That's very new. And by the way, you can order it on. I just got it. I got the link. Okay, here it is. So you can pre-order Huddle Fantasy Football Game at www.thefantasyfootballgame.com. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the co-creator of Huddle, Dillion. How you doing, my friend? Oh, I can't even hear you. Oh, wait. Okay,
there we
go.
I'm good. Yeah. How you doing, man? Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. So we have been following on social media for like when during the fall, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we started kind of the original, like the first conversation. I was with a buddy at a bar in like 2023, and I was like, I want to make a board game about fantasy football, and he was like, sure. And then so we just started kind of like working on this thing, and it became like more of a real thing about like really July of last year was when we did our soft launch, and then it's just kind of snowballed since then. So yeah.
Now, before you were like doing the board game, did you have to like patent it?
No. So what's nice with board games, like you can't really patent a board game. Like you can do copyrights and trademarks. So we have that. But we also, it's board game mechanics are pretty, like a lot of the mechanics we use in our game are in tons of games. Like we roll dice as a scoring component. So that's pretty familiar in like Risk and Yahtzee and thousands of other games. So we don't have to like do any patent work. There's so much evidence of our ownership too since the beginning. And we took special steps too to make sure we were documenting with timestamps of like the different phases of the game. So yeah, patents weren't necessary for the actual board game space.
Good, because usually when you do board games, you do patent, so that way nobody won't else steal your ideas and stuff like that.
Yeah, and the board game community, man, like I was like an avid board game fan. Like my wife and I play board games almost daily. My buddies and I will get together and like play Risk or play Catan or Tower Up and whatnot. The board game community is very much collaborative versus kind of I'm going to take your idea. So we were part of like playtesting communities where we would go with like our original like early prototypes where I was just like writing stuff on the card and my other creator was like writing stuff on cards, and we take them in these boxes we bought from like random shops, and we take them to these groups and people would play test them, and like it was more about just helping contribute to the idea and making sure the game played really well. And then I'm on Reddit and like telling people about the game, so there was never a fear of someone stealing the idea, which was like the board game community is just an incredible space for creators, which is cool.
Now, for me, I've been playing fantasy football since I was a senior. Since I was a senior in high school, this was like back in 2008. That's how long I have been playing fantasy football, and I just won my back-to-back fantasy football champion. So, congratulations to me.
Let's go. Let's go. Yeah.
So what makes this board game unique?
Yeah, man, I'm the same boat. I've been playing fantasy football. So I'm originally from New Zealand. I moved here in 2006, started playing fantasy football in 2006. 3 leagues for like 12 plus years in like some of these leagues. Like it's so much fun. Man, it was really like, so it was about creating something that brought people together. Like I'm all about people and just having fun with my friends. And so it was about creating, and like I blended the concept of fantasy football, which brings me a lot of joy, and like I get together every year with my buddies who I don't see, we live apart, and then bringing it together in like a board game experience, which also brings people together. So now we can enjoy the essence of fantasy football year round. So it's because we're not tied to the fantasy football season. You can get through a game, and honestly you can have a 4-player game in like 45 minutes. So it was really about having that kind of competitive energy about fantasy football whenever you want and be able to do it in like 45 minutes. But to be fair, some of the best games I've ever had were watching games on Sunday and we're sitting down, we're playing, we got 6 guys and we're just, having a couple beverages, watching the games, and maybe like a game of Huddle takes like 3 hours. But that's because we're dilly-dallying along and whatnot. But yeah.
So like the last time I think it was like a a board game as far as like sports, it wasn't like fantasy type, was Stratomatic Baseball. And you know, Stratomatic Baseball is still popular to this day. So I
Yep.
like that concept of like, since you have football, it's more of like a realistic, especially for fantasy football, because like
Totally.
with a game like that, you could play for like hours. You know, like the quarterback, the running back, the wide receiver. You know which player to look for and what, you know, like your strength and your weaknesses and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So with you doing that concept, it's like a eye opener for me.
Dude, it really is. Like, for a long time, I was like, I think this is fun. I'm not sure. Like, I had this playtest group testing the mechanics, and then I have my buddies testing just like the overall fun of it. And now I think I've played the game over 120 times in the last year. Like, we've played this game a lot, and it's just good old fashioned fun. Like, we just wanted to. We obviously we can't use real player names from licensing, so I
Right.
just made up players. I went Key and Peele style and just made up some random names. But it's funny. I was really worried that people would see that as a disadvantage to the game. No one's cared. It's funny. People actually get attached to these new players, and like they don't actually care. And then I was also like, I put some of my buddies in the game, like use very like I got a good friend Eric Strom. His middle name's Alan, so I was like Alan Strami. So I got to have some fun with this thing, and that at the end of the day, that's all this thing was about. Was just like having a good time, and now it's become like making a product that other people can go have a good time too. So yeah, the mechanics are very similar to fantasy football, and yeah, you've got like we have rosters of players on teams, and yeah, you can kind of just like you draft your players and have some fun, and you people like oddly get attached to like these fake players, which has been really really fun to see.
Now on the drafting part, so like when you're on the clock, so will it have like anything like, let's say like we get like 4, 5, 6 people play the game, so will it have like an actual draft, like you're actually like drafting the player?
Bro, the draft is sick. Like it's slightly different. So it's an auction style draft, but instead of one player being on the clock, so the clock is it's a minute timer. So the timer gets flipped, and during that minute, it's full simultaneous play. There are 7 players in the pool, so you've got one quarterback, one running back, one wide receiver, tight end, a defense, and a kicker. And
Right.
all those players are open to bid on. Each player at least has to make one bid each minute round, but you just start bidding. And it can get hectic. Like there's some rounds I'm bidding on 4 players at once, and then the highest bid wins. You get a stack of 20 chips to build out your roster of 9 players. But it can be chaotic, especially once you've got a pool like that pool of players I was talking about. If they're really high ranking players, so player rankings range from 5 to 1. If you've got a bunch of 5 and 4 stars in there, people are throwing some serious cash, and like it can get kind of wild. And so highest
Oh yeah.
score wins. Yeah, bless you.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah. But hey, but the thing is, I like when it comes to the draft, like you're very like serious because you be like, okay, I want this player, but this person got that player. But with the board game, you don't have to worry about stuff like that.
Well, you do because like so we have a finite number of so like I I distributed the player rankings pretty
Okay.
evenly. So there's only 3 5-star quarterbacks. There's only 4 5-star running backs, only 4 5-star wide receivers. So and then there's a stack, in the game there's 26 quarterbacks. So the likelihood of you getting them it's low. So when those players do come up, you got to bet some money, or you hope that those players surface during the regular season when you can start to adjust waiver wire situations.
Now, how many regular season are in the board game?
Dude, so you can play one game. Like so one season can take 45 minutes, it can take a couple hours. But the way we designed it is we wanted to make it so that people could come in and play. Again, they could play for 45 minutes or they could play for 5 hours if they want. So our score sheet structure allows you to choose as a group, you choose how many weeks you want your season to be.
Okay.
We recommend if you're playing like a 4-player game, your minimum is probably a 3-week season. So at least you get to play everybody an even number of times. So 4 players, 3 weeks, I get to play everybody once. Top 2 teams play one final matchup for the championship. But you could also make that a 6-week season. So you get to play everybody twice. You can make it a 9 week. So you get to play everybody 3 times. And then that also gives you time during the season to like adjust your roster using the waiver wire pickups.
Now, is there anything that we may see some surprises in the board game?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple like fun little rules we built in. Like one of my favorites, and this was a random rule that I threw out like one time. I was handing the game over to get it play tested, and as I was walking out, I turned back. I was like, oh, by the way, if you have two or more players from the same team, you get an extra star on one of those players, like an extra ranking. And they were like, okay, cool. And I left, like came back, and they're like, man, that team stacking rule was so much fun. It changed the dynamics. So like that was like the teams now really matter. So like that's one thing to kind of keep aware of. Um, just awareness in the game too. Like you've kind of got to be on it. Like you do have to be in fantasy football. You got to make sure like your players are not playing. You know, like your wide receivers not going up against like a ridiculous secondary where you're only being allowed like 50 yards per game. So you've got to make sure that you are keeping track of your roster. You're keeping track. Like we have news event cards, so those get played every week, and they completely change the structure of the game too. So there's a team card that gets played, and that team card could be Houston is traveling to a cold climate, playing in sub-zero temperature and 3 feet of snow, -1 star for all players. So all Houston players will lose a star for that week. So you've got to kind of be aware of this stuff and just like pay attention. And then we have player event cards, and so you play one of those each week, and that can be. I had some fun with this. Like wide receiver decided to move to New Zealand on a sabbatical. He'll be back next week, but he's on bye. So now you got to remove this player, and you either have to move someone from your bench, or you're going to go get new waiver wires. Like there's just a lot of dynamic changes happening, which they're just a good time. They're fun.
Oh my gosh. Now, as you're explaining this, it makes me want to buy this game so bad. Because, like I said, I'm a fantasy football guy. So, like, even like if I like before I go to bed or like wake up like 5 in the morning, I always check to see like who's injured, stuff like that.
Same, bro. It's same. I always like. It's always funny. Like the Thursday morning, I wake up. It's like, did my waiver wire pickups hit? Like, did I actually get those players? And yeah, so.
Now, will this board game will be like stores like because I saw because I did register before we even did the interview, so just want to let you know that.
So I saw that. Yeah, appreciate that.
Thank you. You're very welcome. Now, when the game is released, because you have a couple of days because people have a couple of days to even like sign up in the email to get the notifications and stuff like that. So will this be like in like Kohl's, Target, or just online as of right now?
Yeah, good question, man. I think we're just gonna go direct, right? Like I think I'd rather make sure the game is affordable than send it to a retailer. Plus, like the fantasy football community, as you know, it's a pretty well-defined group of people. I can speak to them well. I'm a big fantasy football fan myself. I know where they exist. So we can just go direct to them and we can communicate and kind of tell our story to them pretty well. So we have no plans right now to go into retail. We're just going to sell direct on our website. It also means that we can control everything, which like quality is immensely important to me. Timeliness is important to me. You know, right now there's a much longer wait because the games are in production with the manufacturer, and then once they get produced, then they get shipped, and then they're on a boat for 2.5 months coming to the US. So that's why we're doing kind of this pre-order period right now. But yeah, right now, just straight through our website. Just make it easy.
That does. Since you're doing it for the first time, it does make sense, like a direct consumer type of stuff. Because I work in retail, so I do know those terms as well. But that is a great idea. So like since you're because like when you do like direct, you got more independence than it is with like a real retail store.
Yeah. I will say that the only reason I might go into retail at some stage, one, if the game kind of catches on.
Okay.
We had some really good interactions when we were first playtesting this. So it wasn't even like the actual game. So like this is like the prototype copy now.
Okay.
But like the original was just like this box with a bunch of hand drawn cards. Anyway, so we'd be sitting at bars playing this thing. What was funny is the only people coming up and asking us what we were playing were like wives and girlfriends who were at the bar with their husbands or boyfriends. and
Right.
then come over and they'd be like, "What are you guys doing?" We're like, "Playing a fantasy football board game I made." They're like, "Oh my god, I would buy this for my husband or my boyfriend." They're probably not going to be receiving or like looking for our stuff online, or like our marketing's probably not going to reach them. So like a retail avenue would suit that kind of purchasing process. But we'll see. We'll just kind of, we're just going to kind of play it by ear.
Cause like when I look at it right now, like I can see this like you're playing this game like with your friends, during NFL draft day, preseason, summertime, if it's like winter
Whenever.
time, well, winter, like if it's like January, if it's cold, you guys can like play. Like this game to me is more of a year round, like just like any other board game.
Yeah, the thing we say is fantasy football on demand. Like you can pull it out and you just get to play fantasy football whenever you want.
Good. And I bet like when I play this game like 4 or 5 people, it's like the same thing, just like I'm playing like fantasy football, like the championships and stuff, playoff stuff like that. So I already know
Oh,
in my head.
oh, it gets like I was in Jacksonville a couple weeks ago with a couple buddies, and we played the game like multiple times in one day. So we had like 4 seasons in one day, and everybody was just like, "Can we play again?" By the last round, a couple of my buddies that were playing were like yelling at each other. Like it got to that point. I was like, "This is exactly what I wanted from this game." Like it's fantasy football, man. Like it's just as a board game. It's funny. Like a lot of people, like, well, how does it play? I was like, it's fantasy football, just in board game form. Like you've got the same banter, you've got the same highs and lows, you've got the same feeling. You're just drafting players with a slightly smaller budget. You don't it's not Tyreek Hill. It's a different player.
Right.
It's not the Dolphins. It's Miami. Colors are pretty similar. But yeah, man, we went for like fun, and like bringing that competitive aspect to your game nights was also like a big theme and focus for us.
Awesome. I'm looking forward for that. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is Dillion Paul, co-creator of Huddle, the fantasy football game. Now, where can my listeners find you on social media and when the game will be actually released?
Yeah. So we're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube as the fantasy football game. So that's our handle on everything. You can buy the game right now. So if you go to thefantasyfootballgame.com, you can learn a little bit about the game, and then you can go right into our shop. So you can do a pre-order. We're doing a special pre-order period for the next, it's a 60-day pre-order period. There's only about 30 days of that left, where we're doing special pricing, free shipping, and I'm going to do like a little gift where I'm actually going to upgrade some of the components in the game for people. And then we'll be delivering. So the games are in production now, and the games will be here late spring. This is my first foray into developing a physical product overseas. So we went with a very, very nice manufacturer. They actually make one of the most popular games in the world right now. It's called Wingspan.
Okay.
So the quality is going to be great. And then, so late spring, basically my goal is I want everybody to have this game before the NFL season. So like groups of friends can get together for fantasy for their draft, and they can play Huddle, and then they can draft in their ESPN or Yahoo apps.
Well, with me, I play NFL.com on the fantasy football.
There you go. Nice.
So yes, and the link will be in the description box for those that want to pre-order the game. So just want to let people know about that. But thank you very much, and I look forward to have you on a future show if you guys make another one.
Oh, we've got The goal is we've got a couple of the sports themed like games that we're in the pipeline. We just want to put all of our focus and effort into Huddle first, and then we've got some other kind of games in the queue, which will be really fun too.
Thank you very much. It was a great pleasure having you on.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me.
One-on-one interview. That was a blast.
That was
when
awesome.
when I first saw it, I was like, oh man, I could probably play fantasy football every month.
Every month, every week, whatever you want. Again, fantasy football on demand, man.
All right. Thank you very much, and you have a nice and wonderful day.
All right, bro.
Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you like what you just saw, make sure you follow our social media pages, and don't forget to visit our website at 5a6sports.com for the latest news in the sports world.